What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and welcome to another review. So, it's been a while. I have been in full-on collector's mode. I've been, answering. Well, I finished answering, the wonderful response I got from Tough Commander and Scallywags TV. And yeah, it was annoying. We're all allowed to have our opinions, but you don't have to be a complete dick in the process, you know? And if you're gonna be a dick, expect to be met with the same response. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an eye for an eye. It's very simple. But I'm done with that. I want to move on to some other things. I want to jump back into reviews because it's kind of funny. In the past, you remember a few years back, I made a kind of a plea or a choice to focus on the shit that I really love. And it's been, I see that it's been inspiring others. Others have been jumping in, they've been enjoying it. I'm not going to stop doing that, but I have to balance the equation. So that's partially why I had to start with that Astronomer figure, and I've got more. Unfortunately, in this case, though, and I kind of hate when this happens, it's me having the same experience as others who, jumped at the prospect of getting the figure in question. The figure in question is the DC McFarlane DC Multiverse Bane. What did they call them? Build and collect, I think they're called. Oof, boy, I tell you. Yeah, collect to build. I'm sorry. CTB, which is terrible. But the build a figure essentially. And holy shit. Where do I start? I mean, this was the thing, right? I told you guys a long time ago that my Batman 89 is going to be the last Batman figure I buy. And I'm still waiting for that figure. Since I made that declaration, I've ended up with a couple, I want to say about 3 more Batman figures. And it's weird because there's different reasons for why this happened. But in this case, 2 of those 3 are in this wave that's necessary for you to build Bane. Now, I don't have that much to say about the rest of the wave because I only really got the rest of the wave so that I could build Bane. And Bane is kind of a disappointment. There's a lot of people, I shouldn't even say a lot. There's like a contingent of people. It's a small contingent of people who they got this figure and they had no issues. They were able to pop all the parts in and there was no problems. Me, I had to boil them twice and the legs still don't securely fit where they're supposed to. The arms, the joints, they're supposed to be a universal at the shoulder. McFarlane does it a little different where there's a ball socket joint. I had this same issue with the arms on All for One from My Hero Academia. The arms aren't securely in there. It's the way they get around the whole butterfly joint thing. They use a ball joint, a ball socket joint. We'll move him aside so I can show you. Oof, almost had an issue. So you see, there's the ball in there. Or I'm sorry, the socket joint in there. There you go. And then there's, this is kind of a cover. It's not an actual, similar to what Storm Collectibles does. And then you have this long ass ball joint that goes in there. It just pops right in. You have to fiddle with it for a while to get it all the way in. Once you do, you will feel the kind of slightly popping-ish kind of sound, and you'll be good to go. Don't think I heard it, but I felt it here, see? So now it's connected. That didn't happen with Bane. I had to boil him for that to happen. So, that wasn't fun. The reason that I picked up this line is I intended only to get this version of Diana. Diana is one of my favorite characters. She almost always is, and everything about this figure is top notch. I mean, she's not as detailed in the paint department as I would like, but it's funny because like while I was playing around with her, I put her next to the last multiverse, Mattel multiverse Wonder Woman that we got. And the difference is like night and day. Like one actually makes the other look like a children's toy, you know? And you can see a definite evolution. I mean, obviously there's the scale difference. The old figures were 6-inch scale, whereas McFarlane's figures are 7-inch scale. But, you know, there's articulation that's missing from his figure, and then there's articulation that we have on the old figure. And it's kind of nice, you know, when you see it all together, it's like, holy shit, they actually, you know, they did the damn thing with them, or with her. But, I mean, look at that figure. Like, I mean, no offense to whoever sculpted them, because I still play with this one like crazy. But, I mean, it's a night and day difference. One looks like it was sculpted for people who don't really care about, you know, a high level of detail. And I can't even say that, because there is a high level of detail on her costume. It's just that there's not a high level of detail on that face. I mean, holy shit. Look at that face. What the fuck? Oh my God. I mean, look at the two. I mean, and I understand. One is imitating Greg Capullo's art, and I give him props for that. And the other one, it's a number of different artists. But, you know, Greg Capullo is one of those guys that has a very distinctive style. And, you know, many comic book artists do, but there's something about the way he does it that it translates really well to figures. You remember the DC Collectibles Capullo Batman? That's still one of my favorite Batman figures just because of the way the cowl looks. And it's kind of funny. Remember, we would say that we would consider DC Collectibles figures to be 7-inch figures. Clearly, this is smaller than 7 inches, you know? He's more in line with the 6-inch figures, while she is actually 7 inches tall. But look at that profile. It actually feels like a helmet, you know? And it's kind of crazy because when you're looking at, like, from the side, come on, guys, focus on him. There you go. When you look at it from the side, you feel like it's a mask. Look at it from the front. Wow, this is the worst that I've done in a while with this focus nonsense. I normally don't have that big of an issue with focus. There we go. So from the front, looks good. From the side, looks really good. You know? This is my default New 52 Batman. So that's what I was talking about. It's Greg Capullo style. I'm getting, you know, into all these other things, and I don't need to. I need to focus on what we started with, but you get what I'm saying. Very cool style. Even his anatomy looks good, and this is one of those things that I'm talking about. I've talked about before, you know, there's a right or wrong way to render anatomy, and he is anatomically correct. What I don't like is the articulation, or lack thereof articulation, but that is a story for another day. Today we are talking about this Wonder Woman, and she's dope. She's really dope. She's the reason why I even picked up the Wave. I was going to get her. Then I realized, holy shit, there's the Bane parts in there. And I looked at that Bane and I was like, that'd be perfect because, you know, in my collection, I don't know how you guys do it. I've seen a lot of videos where people talk about aesthetics and this figure matches this and that and whatever. That's not how I collect. I sometimes will mix and match the villains, comic book style and movie style. So depending on what they do, depending on where they come from, depending on, you know, what their purpose is in that universe, I pick the design that best fits, you know, who they are. Like my Thanos. I didn't pick up any of the movie Thanos figures because I don't like them. Instead, I went with the Marvel Select one right here. This is the Disney exclusive one, or Disney Store exclusive one from about a year or two back. I love this one. Call Obsidian, as he's called in the films. But like, you see what I'm saying? The aesthetics can be all over the place. With Wonder Woman here, this is an Elseworlds Wonder Woman, and I don't have very many Elseworlds Wonder Woman unless I consider the film versions as Elseworlds. But she just looks raw, and I dig it. I completely dig it, so I had to get her. What I wanted with Bane, though, is like young Bane, because my Batman collection, and I do this with my DC figures a lot, I always have like, when they first showed up, you know, whatever time period that is, they look one way. And then, you know, present time or future, they look another way. You know what I mean? They have another look. So like, this is young Bane when he first showed up. So he would be fighting my Ascending Knight Batman, like towards the end of the Ascending Knight Batman's, you know, time. So Batman's wearing that costume. This would be the Bane where that, you know, debuted and smashed his back. So then he goes through all that, or I should say injured him heavily. So then, you know, they go through their issue with Azrael and all that shit. And, you know, Batman comes back wearing, you know, a black suit before he switches back to a black and gray suit, which would be the Sovereign Knight. Then by the time we get to the end of the Sovereign Knight timeline, you have this Bane. And this would be the Bane that might fight Supreme Knight Batman when he's older. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see Bane for a long time after he gets beaten. And then when you do see him again, he's bigger than he was back in the day. Because, I mean, these two figures, I mean, you can just see side by side, head and shoulders difference. Jesus Christ. There you go. Head and shoulders difference. I mean, just look how much bigger this guy is than that one. At first, the idea was going to be that he'd just be big. And when he uses the, you know, the little thing on his hand, which is on the opposite hand with this figure, when he uses this, it would get him to that size. But then I was like, you know what, let's just switch it up. Because a lot of things are different here. He doesn't have the Venom plug in the back of his head like this one, like the original Bane did. Instead, he has the, just, you know, like the syringes or whatever are in the gauntlet right here. So we know that it's going straight into his veins. And I like that. It works. So I was like, you know what? That's how we're going to do it. Straight into the vein. That's dope. So go straight into the vein, and he's big. And maybe he's stuck this way. You know, he's pretty big and he's stuck that big for whatever the reasons are, based on the fact that he's been using Venom for so long. Maybe this is the side effect. But I like it. And that's the look that I wanted. The problem is the build of the fucking figure, you know? I hated the plot, The Last Knight on Earth. I'm tired of those stories. I explained this in another video when I was talking about how much I dislike death metal and Dark Knight's metal and stuff. I mean, it's just really generic. And, you know, I'm not trying to diss... what's his face? Capullo's artwork, because I love Capullo's art, and the dude is so cool. Like I said to many people who I've had this discussion with about meeting him many times, he acts like we're best friends anytime I see him, and he does this to all the people that he meets. He'll give you a big old hug. At least back in the day, he did. I don't know how it would work now, but he gives you a big old hug, and he just talks to you like you've known him for years. And I love that, because he gives you props for being his fan, you know? He gives you the respect of someone who, you know, helped him get to the position that he's at, you know, because we love his work. And I love this is what I love about Artist Alley in general. I get to meet people who dig what I've done, you know, all of us, what we've done as artists, and they get to give us, you know, their attention, and we get to give them our attention, and just talk like people who all of us enjoy the same stuff, you know? And you get to see the pure love for the art form. And I love that, because it recharges me. It makes me want to do more. But anyway, Homeboy's a great dude. He's awesome. He makes you feel like you've known him for a while. You feel happy that he's someone you've supported, more so than a lot of people. Because I'm crass as fuck. I'm not hugging up everybody, and I'm not, you know, and it's not that I don't appreciate you. Trust me, when you meet me at an artist alley, we'll have conversation. I'll be sketching the whole time. We can talk about who we like, what comic books we love, what comic books we grew up on, what comic books inspire us, all of that stuff. I'm just not as much of a people person as he is, But I love it. I respect it. But I hated Dark Knight's Metal because I felt like in order for us to get to that point, there's so many lapses in logic that have to happen. You have to pretty much separate Batman's universe from everyone else. But then the problem is that you still have Superman and Wonder Woman and all the other characters showing up in there. And you're just like, how the fuck did these people survive? But then, Dr. Fate didn't. Or how the fuck did these people get to be whoever they are? But like Superman is the way he is in that universe. You know what I mean? Or where's the Phantom Stranger? Where's freaking what's his face? The Spectre. Where's freaking like you could just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on about characters that are so damn powerful that there's no way that this universe could come to exist. But, for the sake of the story, you're like, yep, this universe exists and you have to just allow it. Same thing with the Last Knight on Earth. I read it when it came out. I remember not enjoying it. There's cool visuals. I mean, like Batman in a straitjacket carrying around the Joker who's alive in this thing. It's just his head. It's like, it's a fucking crazy visual. And Capullo's art is on point. It's amazing. But some of this other shit is just like, I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not feeling the insanity of it all. So I figured I would use some of these things for different situations, like Batman. If you remember in Batman the Animated Series and in some of the comics, they did this as well. There's been several times where Bats ended up stuck in Arkham. Well, here's your Arkham Asylum suit. I don't like this Wayne on the W for Wayne on his chest. It should be an A for Arkham, but I know in the story there's a reason for it. But in my universe, this is Batman in a straitjacket because, it's one of those stories where he wakes up in Arkham and the whole thing is figuring out how he got there, surviving the whole situation, and then getting back out so he can get back to his gear or just taking down whoever's in charge. But that would be the Batman I would use for that, Scarecrow, absolutely not. This is going to be something else you'll see in another story. I'm not going to use this as Scarecrow. This OMAC thing, Omega, I will use as someone else, but like like an evil Batman type, just for fun, when me and my son are playing around. I have no connection to the story that this all comes from. So yeah, they just get that look because I love Capullo's art. I'm going to redo the whole, the in-universe usage of those characters. But they all look great. The sculpting is not the issue. It's simple things like getting them to stand. It's a pain in the ass because their ankles suck. Scarecrow is awesome, but the issue I have with Scarecrow is his fucking hands, and I know how to fix them. You just put them in hot water and then put them in cold water. But I mean, they're worse than they should be. They're supposed to be kind of mangled. But I mean, just look at that shit. That's just too mangled. I mean, you got this finger going over the last finger, and no matter what I do, it always ends up like that because they're both on the same joint. See, it'll go down for a little while and they'll be aligned. And then after a while, as you can see, it's happening right in front of you. This one wants to go over the other one. And I've heated these up already and, put them in the freezer and all that stuff. And it just doesn't work the way I want it to. So, like I said, he's going to be something else. I like this, though. This little spinal piece and his shriveled up pelvis on a little ratcheted, swivel joint. It's not even a swivel. It's a hinge. A side-to-side hinge. And that face, man. I mean, holy shit. It's a crazy looking face. Just like, woof. You've become something that could actually scare people. It's a cool design. I mean, it's just Nah, you would never get to this point. Scarecrow would have been long since, he'd have been dead long before this ever happened, you know? Like there has to be some epic story that ends with Batman just murking Scarecrow or beating his ass, and Scarecrow ends up dying in the process. I refuse to believe that somehow Scarecrow would be able to survive, to be existing and running around in an apocalypse of some sort. Like, get the fuck out of here. You're giving some of these guys way too much credit. But I'm not feeling a lot of the construction things. Like, I don't know why the joints on this figure are made of something different. Like, look at this. Why? But not on this side? But look at this side. It's like, really? Are we really doing this? Like I said, the feet kind of suck. I mean, the sculpt work on these guys is just phenomenal. I mean, this Batman, I didn't realize while he was in the package that the suit was actually made of parts of the straitjacket, And that looks great. That looks freaking great, Look at the straps on that make up the ears. Like, that's dope. And then the texture. That's one thing that McFarlane's team does so well is texture. So you don't have to freaking dry brush the shit out of your figure, make it look like you've been rolling around in dirt and poop and pus and, all that. Instead, the lighting can do it. Like, you see how right here, where the shadows are starting to form because you have the light source over on this side, like a heavier light source on this side, you get that texturing detail to the nth degree. Where the light's hitting, it's a little bit less because the light is hitting it. So your figure has depth, and your lighting does a lot of the work. That's something that a lot of people miss when you look at toy photography and everything. They and customs. I mean, it's the same on him. Look at him. All this right here helps show definition in the muscles and his neck and everything, and it looks good, I'm impressed with their sculpt work, man. Their sculpt work is second to none. And sometimes their paint work is what kind of fails the figure. I mean, this paint work is amazing when you look at all the line work going throughout the figure. It's consistent, even where it's not sculpted, like in his thighs. On top of the black, it's not sculpted. It's all just painted on, and it looks great. I was actually surprised that they did that. What else? Batman's baton. It's nice. Got a little bit of damage on it, which is nice. It's cool. Looks like it's been used. Looks like he's clubbed a few people. As well he should. He is fighting for his life. And I like that. It works. And the Joker. I really didn't feel like having to focus on the Joker again, but it's a nice one. I saw somebody rip this apart to put this head on one of the figures, and I'm just like, dude, this doesn't look good enough for it to be the Joker head. But I mean, in some people's headcanon, Joker's more grotesque. In other people's headcanon, he's more clownish, and it is open. If you want to do that, you can do it. It is your collection. You do what you want. Personally, I think this head is going to stay in this container. I think of all the heads, this is one of the worst Jokers. One of the least, I guess, it's not the worst. It's one of the least interesting Jokers. My favorite Joker of all time is the Arkham Joker. So, Arkham City. So that's the one I use. I think it looks better than every other Joker that they've released, including the one that they recently did that's supposed to be more comic book oriented. And I'll put him over the, I'll put up a picture of him so you could see. But yeah, I got these guys simply because I really wanted Diana, but I really, really wanted Bane. So with Bane, you're supposed to use him with Scarecrow because you're recreating that cover of one of the books. And as you can see here, there's a peg that sits inside of Scarecrow's belly. See that? It's normally like this, so it looks like intestines. See that? which I got to give him props for. That's pretty clever. And then when you can pry it out with your fingernail, give me just a second, I will do that. And see, now you have a peg. Looks kind of funky, but this peg goes into Bane's back, and then you can have him resting on Bane's back, much like in the, the picture. I'm not going to do that right now because, I didn't get him for that. But what I want to show you is a couple things. Number one, let me show you his height compared to another Batman figure, probably one of the taller Batman figures, and that's the Capullo Batman. Look at how tall, with a difference in height, That's pretty crazy. They did a great job with the scaling on this guy. It feels like he is a monster, and he should. Here he is next to Supreme Knight. And as you can see, Supreme Knight is on the larger side, like build-wise, but he is still, all the Mezco figures, the Mezco Batman figures are about the same height. So there you go. Jesus Christ. I like it though. It fits what I was thinking, When I first saw these guys, that's literally where my mind went. I was like, oh shit, I have to do that. But the big issues are pretty simple. This dude doesn't want to stay together. If you do anything too much, and as stiff as some of the, like this arm joint up in the shoulder, it's so stiff. So if you even try to pull this up, his arm's going to pop out of the socket. I'll show you. Ooh. Of course. Ugh. You see? So it's a pain to get that shit to move. I mean, a couple days ago when I got him, it was so much more difficult, but I've been moving it up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to loosen that up. I heated it up and did that, and then I put a little bit of WD-40 in there to try and get that to me. The ratchets are really heavy on him, and it's kind of annoying because it just jacks up. It's just a lot of extra work, and it shouldn't be so much work just to get him to move, but it will hold. But it's not like you have any complex, movement, like he doesn't have a bicep swivel. He doesn't have a, does he? Okay, he does have a swivel at the elbow. It looks kind of weird, but it works. I can't believe it just knocked down everything. Just the swivels. I mean, the freaking ratchet. Come the fuck on, dude. Even knocked down my bike. Come on, man. Knocking down all my other people. But anyway, his joints are just, it's like nightmare, man. They're just fucking, they're just annoying. And it's weird because looking at him, it feels like the same vein as the Juggernaut, the Marvel Select Juggernaut, which is one of my favorite figures of all time because it captures the character so perfectly. But the legs, you can't hardly move the leg up without all of that. You see that? This is the, I'm going to just get up close so you can see it separating, right? Just so you can see I'm not crazy and I'm not making up this story. I'm trying not to move it enough for it to pop out, but movement makes it pop out. It comes loose. And it never goes all the way in, as you can see. Other side, same deal. You even begin to move them. Look at that. And it won't catch. And then everybody's like, you can even see some of the wetness, the moisture from when I heated him up and boiled him. Because I straight up boiled this motherfucker so that I could get that shit in there. And it didn't work. And after a couple times, I was just like, I give up. I'm probably just going to glue it together if I keep this figure. Because part of me just wants to give him back. Part of me, because I like Bane, is like, let me keep this, I want to have this look, this Bane represented in my collection The problem is it's not a quality figure, you know? It's one of those figures that you're better off just kind of skipping. Skip the whole wave, except for Diana. And it's weird because you had people, I've seen reviews, and, you know, personal preference is a thing, but I've seen reviews where people are like, skip Diana. She's not that cool. That this guy, Omega, is the best guy in the wave. And I'm like, articulation wise, yeah, he's good. Articulation wise, I don't have problems with like any of the other people, especially not Diana. I don't have any issues with Diana. Articulation wise, it's just that none of them stand up well without their stands. And now with just about every single figure I've gotten from McFarlane, with the exception of Thomas Wayne, Liu Kang, who I got just a little bit ago. I got him like a week or two ago. I found him just on a whim. He stands up really well, even though he has really small feet. I still put him on his stand just to make sure he stands up. Deathstroke can't stand, you know, without his stand. And even on the stand, I have to position him in a way that will allow him to stand up. So he often falls down. Who else? The Joker stands pretty fine. His feet are just the right size. And Arkham Knight Batman stands really well. I don't have any issues standing him up. So with them, I mean, I'm good. I don't really have any complaints with some of them, you know, as far as how they stand and if they hold the pose that I put them in. I mean, they got ratchets in places. I've been asking for ratcheted ankles and ratcheted shoulders and such for a long time. The problem is when you have a big ass figure like this and the connection points aren't secure, you know, the engineering is just kind of shoddy for him, and it takes away from things. I hate the fact that so many of the figures just can't stand up without their stand. You know, like that's an annoying piece. I mean, like I'm used to, you buy a figure and you stand them up with little to no effort, you know? You don't have to really do too much. So I don't know if this is really worth it for all the folks. I honestly feel like half of the line or half of this wave is worth it, and then the rest is just kind of booty. And if you have an imagination, you know, if you have a little bit of an imagination when it comes to all these characters, then you can make this work, you know? You can just find a way to put all the guys in your universe. You know, you have Batman figures, you know where they go, and you can make it work. But I have a feeling that, you know, most people are going to want it so that they can have a shelf with, you know, Last Knight on Earth versions of the characters, and they just want the look. They don't care about, and I'm noticing this from a lot of the reviews, people you know, that they go through and they talk about articulation as a formality, like it's a thing that you have to do, not because they actually give a shit about articulation. But if you care about articulation, then some of these are not nearly as good as people are saying they are. And the ones that get the attention aren't the ones that deserve the attention, you know? Some of them just barely do it. But I don't know. If you're a fan of The Last Knight on Earth, then I mean, you're probably going to get these anyway, no matter what is said about them. So, you know, it's kind of a no-brainer for you. For the rest of us, there's a lot of issues with this wave, more so with the, what do they call them? Collect to build. And, you know, Bane, he's awful. He's awful. They missed the mark on this. The sculpt is amazing. If you want to sacrifice articulation, like the, you know, swivel, glue those legs in. I'm trying to contemplate what I should do with this because I don't normally pick up a wave unless it's somebody that I really want. I hate collecting connects because of this kind of dynamic where they force you to, you know, to kind of weigh your options. Like, I really want the guy that you build. So you go through and you buy a whole bunch of characters you give no shits about, i.e., Omega right here. I don't give a fuck about that character. Or Straight Jacket Batman. I don't give a fuck. It's another Batman. I have all the Batmans I need. If I wanted a straight jacket, there's plenty of Chinese sellers that actually make a cloth straitjacket that I could put on my Batman and have him in Arkham. You know what I mean? So just having this it's kind of like there are artistic merits, you know, design related merits to this figure that make him a worthy figure to have in your collection, you know, especially if you're a Batman fan. But outside of that sort of thing, just to have another Batman that has a weird aesthetic, it's not really worth it, you know? Scarecrow, same deal. It's a crazy looking Scarecrow, but like, is he really what you want in your collection? If you think so, hey, get him. It's worth it. The design is there, the look is there. I mean, look at him. He just looks gnarly and crazy and scary, and he is in the same vein as the Arkham Knight and Arkham City versions. But for me, the interest was solely in Diana, and then Bane. You know, Bane was the keeper. He was the thing that made me want to get this and made me, it tipped the scales for me. But without some work, he's just not much to look at. I mean, considering I have this guy who, you know, came from a wave that I also did not like, but he ended up being worth keeping, you know. It's almost like more worth it to search this figure out because he's more posable. I can pose him in the joints stuck, you know. He was a Build-A-Figure, and I didn't have any issues, or collect and connect, I think is what they called them. For all you sticklers that are going to try and tell me in the comments, it's not a bath, it's a collect and connect. Well, yeah, he was a collect and connect. But you can see, like, I'm posing him, and I didn't have any issues at all. I mean, granted, it would have been nice for DCUCs to have ratchets and stuff, but like his ankles, they're still solid. Shoulder universal joints, solid. Bicep swivel, solid. His wrists don't pop out if you move them too much. Like everything that you want in a figure that you have to put together is here. It's not here except for the size, you know? So, and I keep hearing in a lot of the reviews, they say, oh, the only thing you get that figure for is his shelf presence. But who are you trying to shelf presence? Who are you trying to show that off to, you know? Like, you still own the figure. You still paid for almost $100. I mean, these are all $24. So you pay $100, and that's supposed to be the like icing on the cake, and it's icing that tastes like shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's not cool. So McFarlane, you failed on this. I hope that you go back and fix this because we deserve better, you know? It's one thing for us to jump all in, and you know I have faith in McFarlane. I have no issues with the articulation on a lot of the figures, even though they don't have, often don't have thigh swivels, you know? Like, I don't care. That doesn't bother me because they usually have some other swivel somewhere on the figure. I mean, a lot of times it's an anatomically correct thigh swivel, so you get a clean thigh like you see here on Diana, but the swivel is up in her, you know, the crotch, almost where the hip connects to the leg, much like many of the figure arts have done, you know, in recent years. And I like that. I don't have any issues with that. So, you know, it all depends on your perspective, what works for you and what doesn't. But I say, contrary to what you've been hearing from many of the other reviewers who've reviewed these figures over a month ago, in some cases, Diana's the keeper. She has all the details. She has the best paint job in some ways. I mean, it's not the most complex paint job, but I mean, look at the gold on her skirt piece. That's masterfully done. Look at the white star sitting there in the middle of the side of her skirt piece. It looks good. I mean, they should have painted the knife, but you know, they got to cut corners somewhere. The metallic red, that candy apple red that they used for her bustier piece, her, you know, breastplate, looks awesome. The gold looks awesome on top of that red. It doesn't lose its shine, because, you know, a lot of times that's what happens when you use gold on top of red. Either it's a reddish gold or it loses its shine. It looks like gold. They did a very good job there. This bangle, or whatever you want to call this, on her bicep looks great. None of that paint bled onto the rest of her. The silver gauntlets, her hair. this is one of those areas where I was kind of blown away. I was like, holy shit, look at this mohawk. And look at her hair, man. I mean, like, they went nuts on this figure. Let me move up like that. There you go. Look at that. Look at how there's the fade. And it's a wash. You know, you guys love your washes. Look at how good that looks. Oh, come on. There you go. Look how good that looks. So yeah, I'm not complaining about this figure. I think this figure hits the mark very well. I think a lot of people are sleeping on her because, oh, it's Wonder Woman. And it's obligatory for collectors to be like, the Batman figure is the best. Or, you know what I mean? Someone else is the best. So, they went with one of the two Batman figures. And I don't think either of them really take the cake when it comes to, the best figure in the wave. Scarecrow's more interesting than the Batman figures. So, but again, this is one of those things where it's stylistic. This is a stylistically different approach to these characters. And, whichever one fits your personal preference is going to be the one that you're going to go for. So, but don't jump at the prospect of getting this big ass Bane figure, because you can't do anything with him. You can't really pose him. I mean, without a lot of work, you can't pose him. And, he's huge, and that's as much as you can say for him. So, I mean, I'm not completely pissed that I got him, but I'm still contemplating whether or not I'm going to return, the lot, except for Wonder Woman, or what I'm going to do with them. I almost want to sell certain figures or something like that. I don't know. I'll just have to see. It's one of those things where I'm going to look at them, because I haven't bought a whole wave in a long time. And I felt buyer's remorse almost immediately once I opened these up and I saw there wasn't very many accessories. And Bane, putting him together, because I put him together before I took the rest of them out of their packaging. And Bane was just a pain in the ass. Having to boil him and, try to push the parts together, waiting for that click. And I've watched reviews where people did it and they're like, oh, I heard a click. There's no click. And, you can see the gapping. And I don't know. I think it's just the fact that a lot of people don't actually play with these figures. They don't really pose them up anyway. They just literally have them standing there and that's it. So they're not going to notice what's wrong, And there's some that will. Don't get me wrong. But the majority, they're going to take him out of the package, put him together, and stand him up behind everybody else because he's so big. And they'll have that shelf presence moment. And yeah, that's it, because that's all they're looking for. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of this wave. Like I said, Diana is the star to me. And then, the others, it's like in order of importance. She comes first. Then this guy, he has really good detail on him and a lot of it, And then Scarecrow comes next. He's just odd and kind of creepy, which he should be. Then Omega. And then your Bane is almost worthless. Almost worthless. He's almost complete garbage. Almost. Because nothing that he's supposed to do does he do correctly, other than be big. So, it's up to you. You're going to have to call this one for yourself. For me, I'm not really impressed. I think this so far is the worst thing McFarlane has, released for us. Yeah, I would say skip it. But anyway, I've given you my 2 cents. I always explain engineering above so many other things. The engineering needs to be on point so that the figures can do what you set out to do, which is pose those figures, put them in action. If you can't really put them all in action, they've kind of failed, They've definitely failed. So, and it's weird because, like I said, you go to your Mortal Kombat figures and look at that. Striking, accurate. The pose looks good. Look at that hand. It looks great. It's like it came right out of the game. And in many cases, they're just using the 3D data to make the figure. But then with Bane, that's like a sculptor's, like a a comic book fan that sculpts, that's their dream right there. You know, you got texture, you got a big muscular character on there and whatnot, and you got a nice cool face. It's a slightly different version of Bane's his mask. It's got that bat face kind of thing going on. And they just somehow they nailed all the sculpted bits, but then they failed with the the articulation and just the engineering, like I said. So I don't know about this, man. I keep going back and back and back and back, but I'm not impressed with this. They could do better. And, there's proof of that in the wave. So anyway, before I rattle on some more, that is it for me. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. This has been my look at the Last Knight on Earth wave of DC Multiverse figures by, I was about to say Mattel, by McFarlane Toys. And they're kind of, meh, with the exception of Wonder Woman, who's fucking amazing looking. Buy at your own risk. That build to connect or collect to build Bane is almost complete and utter garbage. Sculpt wise, that's masterful, but engineering and practice playing with him, you can't really do that much with him unless you decide to straight up glue these legs. And don't bother to say, oh, heat him up and then it will work. I'm gonna have to obscenely boil him to get that to work, and I might do it, but you shouldn't have to. And anytime you have to do that much work for a figure, you're wasting your money, because you paid them to give you a complete figure, in the vein of a good figure in any collection. He's big, he's supposed to be posable, he's supposed to be, at least marginally posable, and he's supposed to stay together. You shouldn't have to do any extra work. If you have to do extra work, then, you paid too much for what you got. You didn't get what you paid for. Plain and simple. So anyway, before I stutter over my words anymore, that is it for me. You all have been great. Peace outside.